God morgon allihopa som är tidiga in. Vi väntar i några sekunder, någon halv minut till innan vi startar morgonens webbinar. Så se till att ni har kaffe och allting annat ni behöver här under en timme. Och sätt på chatten, registrera er där så att ni kan vara med. Så, då skulle jag vilja säga varmt välkomna hit. Anette Hannefelt heter jag, VD på Swedma. Och jag är så glad att jag återigen får hälsa er välkomna till ett frukostwebinar med oss. Jag skulle säga så här, de senaste tiden så är det 2 stycken ord som jag tror jag har hört mest i alla samtal jag har, och det är AI såklart. Det har vi pratat jättemycket om här på Swedma också i olika former och aktiviteter. Men det andra är ju lojalitet, kundlojalitet och svåra tider. Man behöver behålla och förtjäna sin kund. Och hur man kan göra det då med en förbättrad kundkommunikation i syfte att öka lojaliteten. Det ska vi få höra mer om den här timmen. Och som vi har berättat också i vår inbjudan så är det här webbinariet på engelska. Och det beror på att morgonens gäst heter Fredrik Daudu och kommer från Viraya och är Head of Sales and Marketing på Viraya. Very much welcome, Fredrik.
Thank you very much, Annette. How are you today? Good?
Yeah, I'm good. And you too, I hope?
Yeah, smash. Just a little dark tomorrow, Wednesday. So yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you.
So, fantastic. I leave it to you. You have us for 1 hour, and everyone use the chat, ask questions, comments, and everything, and we will take that in the end, all the questions.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
So.
Yeah, well, good morning, everyone, and of course, welcome to today's webinar on the power of effective communication strategy. Mind you, I have a 10-year-old that says I'm the chatterbox, and so I'll try to take it really slow today. For all of us. So as someone that of course works in the C part space, I've seen firsthand how communication can make or break a customer's experience and also build or destroy customer loyalty. But let's be honest, communication can always be a double-edged sword as well. So, I mean, I have a question here. How many of you have ever sort of experienced a frustrating sales call, a confusing website, or felt completely unheard as a customer? So it happens normally to the best of us. But what if I told you that with the right communication strategy, you could transform those interactions into success stories? So today we're going to sort of peel back the layers of effective communication and give you actionable tips and strategies in order to connect with your audience, boost sales, and supercharge your brand. So let's buckle up and get ready to take some notes and also unlock the incredible potential that lies within a well-crafted communication strategy. But of course, first things first, today we'll be looking at what communication strategy is, why it's imperative to have an effective communication strategy, and how to attain it. We will also attempt to liken an everyday occurrence, of course every day, to why we must have an effective communication strategy, and conclude with a success case of a client of mine that employed effective strategy. Now, before we even talk about what an effective communication strategy is, I'd like to begin by asking you a question. Do customers today, or do you only reach some of them? And this is a question that I think we posed in the invitation as well. So do you reach all your customers today, or do you only reach a part of them? Of course, the challenge here is that, and fun fact, the average person has a shorter attention span than a goldfish, just 8 seconds. So no wonder it sometimes feels very difficult to actually get through to the customer. You see, companies today are shouting into the void with mega channels, yet a significant number of their customers remain in the silent shadows. So things like campaigns, email blasts, social media bust, and text messages fill the airwaves, but a concerning number of customers never get the message. This communication blackout sort of creates some sort of ripple effect of missed opportunities, frustrated customers, and eventually lost ground to competitors. So the issue isn't the volume of the voice. I think the lack of understanding of who's actually even listening. Who is actually listening to your message? And so moving forward, one possible solution here, of course, is developing an effective communication strategy that engages more customers, and one that is not a one-time campaign or something one time, but a consistent, ongoing journey where we keep making changes to the communication strategy, depending on behaves, or depending on how the behavior actually changes over time. So in other words, having a consistent and adjustable approach in the way we communicate with our customers. Let's move on here. So with that said, now look at what a communication strategy is. A communication strategy is a roadmap for how you interact with your customers. It highlights your goals, who you want to reach, what you want to say, and how you want to say it. It's essentially a plan that you set aside for an effective communication across various channels. So, I mean, let's think of it as navigating a new city. I moved to Stockholm 9 years ago, so let's just imagine, my first time in Stockholm. I wouldn't just wander aimlessly, right? The idea is I would use a map to identify my location and destination, choose the best route, and anticipate potential roadblocks. A communication strategy functions similarly, for your message. Therefore, an effective communication strategy is a roadmap for connecting your target audience in a clear, meaningful, and consistent way. It of course aims to bridge the gap between your message and your audience, and that fosters engagement and of course desired outcomes. So now we know what strategy is. It's important to tackle the next question, which is why have an effective communication strategy. As mentioned earlier, an effective communication strategy is critical because it's just between you and your target audience. And this leads to, number one, clearer understanding. That is called a communication strategy that ensures that your message landed and resonates with the customer. A strong connection, of course, that is a communication strategy that builds trust and loyalty through genuine engagement. Of course, we all probably know this, but boost is, of course, a communication strategy that achieves your desired outcomes in sales, engagement, awareness. So think of it as a bridge to success. The clearer and stronger it is, the easier it is to reach your goals.
Sorry, Fred.
Yes.
It seems like there are some problem with the sound that you are hacking every fifth word or something.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they are They are telling me in the chat. Maybe if you put some
earphones, maybe. Just a second.
Yeah, maybe. I'm sorry, everyone.
That's all right. It happens. Technical difficulties.
But I rather hear that everyone can hear you, and we have a little break here in the middle.
That's the most important thing. At least they can hear me. Let me take this. There we go. Probably a lot better now.
Let's try. Yeah.
So let's see here. I'll just move on. So I mean, the last thing it was obviously the fact that it's important to have a communication strategy because it bridges the gap to success, of course, and your goals. And so let's see. And you let me know if it's still the sound is quite bad. Let's see here. Bear with me a second.
Om det är någon som precis kommer in och undrar varför dagens talare är mutad, så upplevde vi lite hack i ljudet, så vi håller på att fixa det här. Kommer snart tillbaka. Ber om ursäkt för det här avbrottet. Hej, som sagt, vi har lite tekniska utmaningar här. Fred behövde byta rum för att säkert nå en bättre uppkoppling för att minska hacket eller ta bort det förhoppningsvis helt och hållet. Men vilken sekund som helst så kommer han tillbaka nu. Så ha lite tålamod och som sagt, tack för det.
Now, can you hear me? So what I'll do is lagging a little bit. I'll just keep my camera off and turn it back on a little while after the presentation. So it's better for everyone. So I'm so sorry for those that wanted to see my face, I know. Brilliant. So moving on, where were we? Let's obviously explore further into why it's important to have an effective communication strategy. So I want us to imagine that, obviously you're trying to communicate something to a friend. So let's say I'm trying to communicate something to my friend. The thing is, I wouldn't just blurt it out, right? An effective communication strategy is like planning that thing I want to say or I want to communicate. So what happens if I don't have a plan for this thing I want to communicate to my friend? The lack of an effective communication plan can lead to confusion, disengagement, and reputational damage, actually, hindering both internal and external relationships. Therefore, it is important we consider investing in clear communication to avoid pitfalls. Now, actually, this is something we normally do without even thinking about it. For example, you won't talk to your mother the same way you talk to your GP or manager or your 5-year-old toddler. You will unconsciously plan the way you communicate with your, with your mum or your boss at work or your 5-year-old toddler. So, going back to the thing I wanted to say to my friend. Right now, let's just, let's plan this chat with my friend and list some things I need to consider. So, the first thing I'll need to consider here when planning this chat with my friend is, what's my goal? Is my goal to make them laugh? Is my goal to change their mind about something? Is my goal to ask them for a favor? It is imperative, or it is really important to know what my objective or what my goal is in order to plan ahead. So that's number one. What is my goal? Now, also, another thing we need to consider, or I need to consider when planning this chat with my friend, is who's my friend? Do they prefer jokes or logic? Are they emotional? Do they respond to emotions? Are they stiff? What motivates them? What are their motivations and what are their challenges? It is important when planning the chat to know who my friend is in order to tailor my message to him or her. Thirdly, what's the message? What will you be communicating? Should it be, should you be transparent in your communication? Is it important to keep it clear or catchy and tailored to them? Should it be personalized? These are all things to consider when planning the chat with my friend. So what's your message? And also one thing that's actually quite important is, how do you say it at all? This chat with my friend, how do I say it? What will be my approach in delivering the message? Do I want to post a letter? Do I want to text him? Or do I want to just give him a phone call? Or should it be in person? Does my friend answer the phone at all? It's important to know how you say it. Also, should it be a fun meme or a serious email? These are all things to consider when planning that chat with either a friend or a mother or someone at work, etc. And lastly, of course, it's important to know, did it work? How was my message received? How did my friend receive my message? It's important to check in and see if they got it, and also if I can adjust the message if needed. What did my friend say at all about the message? Did they like it? What was their feedback? Did it make them cry? Did it make them laugh if it was a joke? These are all things you do, so why shouldn't you do it in your company? That's the core of having an effective communication strategy. Your goals, your audience, your message, your channels, and measuring success. I'll say that again. For those of us taking notes, your goals, your audience, your message, your channels, and measuring success. Remember, it's all about effectively connecting with your audience, just like a good chat with a friend. So now, how does this apply at all? So how does the planning a chat with a friend scenario relate to how we communicate with our customers today? That's a question we should ask ourselves. So let's now explore the how and put into practice these step-by-step elements in creating an effective communication strategy. We will talk more about only sort of 5 of these steps today, but of course, don't worry, you receive the full checklist following this webinar. So on our checklist today, we have understanding your audience, the importance of having a clear and concise messaging, listening to your audience or customers, the use of multi-channel approach, personalization, transparency, staff training, quick issue resolution, regular evaluation, and celebrating customer loyalty. So, first things first, the first factor to consider when creating an effective communication strategy is, of course, understanding your audience. In that, there are 2 elements that play a vital role. So firstly, customer segmentation. And what do I mean by customer segmentation? That is, of course, when we develop targeted communication strategies for each customer segment, taking into account their unique preferences and needs. Just like with the story of me planning a chat with my friend, it was important to know what their unique preferences and needs were in order to plan my chat. So that's customer segmentation as a first factor or first element here in understanding your audience. Secondly, customer personas. And that is, of course, when we craft comprehensive customer profiles to uncover the customer's desires, roadblocks, and preferred communication channels. Again, just like the friend scenario, it is important to know who your customers are in order to know how to communicate with them at all. So that's the first one on our checklist, understanding your audience. And like I said, or Annette mentioned earlier on, please feel free to send in your questions. We can tackle them later and discuss. So the second step on our checklist is, of course, having a clear and concise messaging. So to put this into practice, we need to take into account 3 factors here: simplicity, clarity, and consistency. It is important to use simple language to ensure customers understand the message and convey that message in an early stage. Additionally, what's important here is maintaining consistency in the messaging across all communication channels and platforms. A really important factor, this element of consistency, because you don't, again, going back to the friend story, you don't want to confuse your audience or confuse your customers with different message going to them. And so having a clear and concise message is really important in our checklist of developing an effective communication strategy. Moving on, listening to your customers. Here, it's highly recommended to set up several different channels and methods where your customers can provide feedback. In other words, you can use surveys and interviews to gain insights into the customer's preferences, while you also actively listen to their concerns and, I believe, incrementally make adjustments to the message if necessary. And so listening to your customers is one important. Again, like I said, you can use regular surveys, like you probably already do, an interview to, again, gain deeper insights and deeper understanding into how satisfied the customer is of your service. To your customers is the third point, very important. Again, moving up, perhaps, I think this is one of the most important parts to consider when developing an effective communication strategy. And that is, of course, the methods or the channels you will use to reach the customers. Here, results have shown that when we adopt a multi-channel approach, it is always proven to lead to engaging more customers. So ensuring your communication is mobile friendly and having some sort of omni-channel strategy will mean that customers are reached on every level. Additionally, using various channels will mean that your message will reach each and every one of your customers at different times. And we will see this in action in the success case that I will be showing you later. That the importance of adopting a multi-channel strategy is that you're able to meet the customer at every point, in time of their journey with you as well in that communication strategy. So I believe that's one of the most, important part on our checklist is adopting that multi-channel approach. 5, and we will end it here, but again, like I said, that will be sent over to you after the webinar. Personalization is not just a nice to have. I mean, I've spoken to a few prospects that said, well, personalization or when we customize or customization, it's something that's just nice to have. But I don't think it's it's a nice to have. I think it's a must to have for an effective customer communication in today's competitive landscape. By understanding and fulfilling individual needs, you build stronger relationships, drive business growth, and essentially ensure your brand stays relevant in the eyes of your customer. And so instead of having a generic sort of messaging approach to your customers, it's important to consider that personalization is rather important in order that the customer feels that they've been heard or they've been seen by you. And that also, of course, ensures your brand stays very relevant, like I mentioned earlier on, in the eyes of your customer. And so, again, personalization is rather important. So now we've obviously covered how understanding your audience, having a clear, concise messaging, listening to your customers, adopting a multi-channel approach, and personalization all create or contribute to an effective communication strategy. And like I mentioned earlier, the full list will be sent to you so you can read more about it. So looking at, of course, transparency, staff training, quick issue resolution, regular evaluation, and celebrating loyalty. So now, I know there's a moment you've all been waiting for. Let's move on. Let's link what we've learned so far to an active client case. So here's a client of mine who's adopted an effective communication strategy, which has led to a massive change in their business results, solving the challenge of effectively how they reach their customers. And so let's look at this success case. Of course, my client's challenge here was how they could effectively reach their customers to complete their KYC. A little bit of background regarding the use case for those of us who aren't that familiar with KYC. KYC or KYC check is a mandatory process of identifying and verifying the customer's identity when opening an account, and periodically over time. In other words, my client must ensure that their customers are genuinely who they claim to be. In their process, the customers only need to log into their bank ID in My Pages, or Mina Sidor, as they call it in Sweden, and answer a few questions in order to continue using their products and services. So again, in other words, if the customer doesn't act, they will be blocked in this case. So that was my client's challenge in this particular case. And again, referring back to our checklist, my client set several goals. If you remember the friend scenario, goal setting, I think, was the first of the factors we mentioned. So it was really important in this case, my client to set goals for this particular communication. And the first of the goals was to implement a communication strategy aimed at activating and engaging more customers in relation to KYC, or know your customer. Excuse me. One other element here that they considered as a goal was to test a new communication flow alongside their existing digital communications, mostly directed towards customers who had not completed their KYC verification. And I think another goal here for them was to increase customer loyalty, which is always welcome, and help customers who end up in a difficult situation due to incomplete KYC. And so these were the three goals my client set for the communication that we're about to look at. First things first, it's important to mention that the new strategy here included pre-recorded calls and reminder SMS. So again, linking back to the omni-channel approach we talked about earlier, the importance of adopting multiple channels in order to reach the customer at every point in time of their journey. So now let's take a look at the communication setup. And I hope this helps as well for you to understand how the strategy worked from their side. But let's take a look at the communication setup I helped them adopt, which ensured that all of the customers were reached. Now, this particular setup employed a mixed, combined, or multi-channel approach, where customers due for KYC received a first message 8 weeks prior to due date. And the channel that was used here was, as you can see down here, SMS, email, Kivra. If you live in Sweden, you probably know what. Again, saying in the wrong pronunciation, but Kivra, and postal. So that was the first communication channel that was used, in this case, 8 weeks prior to due date. Then, of course, customers who have not been reached or have not taken action in the first communication receive a second message 3 weeks prior to due date, again, using the same channel as the first, i.e. SMS, email, Kivra, and postal. Now, normally, my client's previous communication setup will stop here. So it will stop here. And I mean, you can imagine, the amount of, customers that perhaps maybe had not received the message as well. And so in the new setup, they adopted 2 more channels to boost their reach rate and conversion rate. And of course, you can see it here. And again, this time, customers who have not taken action in the first message, which is 8 weeks prior to due date, and the second, which was 3 weeks prior to due date, then will receive a pre-recorded voice call and reminder SMS right here. And that is 4 to 5 days prior to due date. And not only do they stop there, they will also receive a further pre-recorded call. And so the ones that have not been reached by this third step we see here will receive a further pre-recorded call and SMS, reminder SMS, 1 to 3 days after due date. And that's, of course, when, after block, when they've been blocked. What's actually important here to mention is that a control group was running alongside to A/B test the new strategy, and which also, highlights the importance of having a control group whenever you have a different communication setup to compare results here in this case for your brand. And so again, just to summarize a little bit, there were 2 steps in the beginning, and what then happened was the adoption or the employing of 2 more steps as part of the communication setup. Brilliant. So now that we've seen, we've looked at the new communication setup, let's align my client's case to our checklist. In the new communication setup, several things were considered in the strategy. And that is, of course, number 1, the understanding of the audience based on customer data. This helped make the process smoother for the customers and given them the choice to act in their preferred channel using several touch points in the same communication. So that was the first thing, of course, that was considered in the strategy, understanding the audience based on customer data that they had. The second thing here is the message was clear and concise. And if you know KYC at all, you're supposed to go straight to the point, basically. And so the message here was clear and concise. And thirdly, the use of a multi-channel approach. And I can't say this enough. That is, of course, the introduction of that pre-recorded, if I go back here, for you to have a look as well, the introduction of that pre-recorded voice calls and reminder SMS, and of course, customer support. And so that was one thing they, sort of considered in that strategy, in that effective strategy. And finally, of course, improving the issue resolution by letting customer support only receive calls from customers who actually want or need their help. So these are all, things in our checklist as well that my client considered in their new communication strategy. So a quick look, of course, at the results. I know that's what we've also been waiting for. We can see here that out of the total number of customers they contacted, 92% of them were reached. And again, these are not made up numbers. This is what happens, of course, when you have an effective communication strategy. So 92% of them were reached, with 61% of them answering the call. Mind you, the ones that didn't answer will receive an SMS meeting that no answer behavior. It's important to mention that as well. So 61% of them answered the call, and a massive 72% of them listened to the whole message, which led to a 43% conversion rate. So 43% of them converted. And if you know the numbers for KYC, the experts here, if you know the numbers for KYC at all, I think it's always between around 18 to 25%, if I'm not mistaken, in conversion. So 43% here in conversion is a great number. This, of course, goes to show you the power of having an effective communication strategy. It is not, again, about shouting it into the void with a megaphone, but how you meticulously plan on the way you communicate with your customers. And I mean, Carl Norman, project leader at Icano, said the greatest benefit of having a collaboration like that with us is that they've achieved a 25% increase in conversion from customers. Moreover, it's very gratifying from a customer perspective because they simplify their everyday life, and the customer avoids potential friction when something is blocked in this case. So that obviously goes to show you the power of having an effective communication, as in, if you look at a use case such as KYC is, however, rather very difficult, very complex to meet the customer at the point in time when they actually, you want them to take an action. by utilizing, different channels here, by utilizing a multi-channel approach, my client was able to sort of reach, 92% of their customers having a conversion rate of around 42%. And so we will end it here for today. And don't forget, of course, the full checklist and the presentation will be sent out shortly. I'm also always available if anyone would like to discuss further and discover more synergies. And apologies for the technical difficulties earlier, but I hope this has been quite useful for you. And let's see if we've got any questions. Now you can see my face, Annette. Oh, there.
Now we can see your face. Lovely.
Excellent.
Thank you, Fred. I don't see any questions in the chat, but maybe now when you are done, it will come.
That's good. So that means
I have one question.
Yes.
in this checklist, which point do you think it's hardest or most challenging to fix or set up, or how do you say?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think but one hard in that sense is, of course, the regular evaluation. We didn't talk about it, but I think also the multi-channel approach needs to be one needs to be very concise in how they choose the approaches. And so yes, you have a lot of tech stack, you have a lot of tools and processes, but it's important to recognize which one is more efficient in this case. And so if we go back to the customer case, we looked at the fact that they used postal, SMS, etc. In that sense, those channels are very scalable, because you can send out an SMS at the touch of a button, or emails. But again, you and I, how many times do we receive emails and just spam them? So yes, emails are great, they're scalable. However, the actual reach is quite low. Again, the conversion rate is really low, so is SMS. And let's compare that to adopting something like a pre-recorded call, a personalized pre-recorded call, where it's scalable, because again, this is automated. So the customer receives the message, and also in terms of actual reach and consistency, that is also part. Because again, I'll give you an example between having a pre-recorded call and telemarketing, for example. With telemarketing, we're here sometimes, we're not consistent in the messaging. The difference here with a pre-recorded call is, what's written, the script that's going out, and so you can in your messaging. So this is not, a system that's not working for a period of time. This is a system that's working 24/7. So going back to, the question, it is important to complement the traditional or the native way of communication, which is SMS, email, postal, with tools like pre-recorded calls, reminder SMS. So having that would help supercharge or boost that conversion rate. That's all I'm trying to say. We have our traditional native way of communicating, but it's important in this era of innovation to add some more innovative channels to it to boost engagement.
Simply.
That's what my son calls me a chatterbox, and so I keep going on if you don't stop me. But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
I did some polls when you were talking, and I asked in the beginning if they reach every customer, and none answered yes. So that says a lot. Yeah.
There you go.
And I also, sorry?
Please. Yes.
I also asked if they had found out how their customers want to be communicated with, in what channel. And 33% say yes, absolutely. and the 67% say no, not yet, but we will find it.
Which is a massive number. I mean, there's 60 something percent we're talking about. It is a massive number. I mean, I moved here. I've got this. I'm not going to mention any names. I moved to Sweden 9 years ago, and I signed up for something. Again, I signed up for a contract, and all I received in that, after I signed up, was an email saying, "Come in, welcome to so and so." Fast forward 3 months, I think 3 or 4 months later, I got another call, a sales call from another company trying to sell me another contract, and it only took me 20 seconds to switch because I didn't have any loyalty to, there was no customer engagement. I didn't have any sort of experience from this one, so it was easy for me to switch companies. And that's why companies are missing out on repeatable revenue nowadays, because the idea is we spend a lot of money on marketing and on acquiring customers, but when we acquire them, we fail to make their journey worthwhile. And so the first 100 days, we all know, are very critical in your relationship with a customer. But if you fail that, then you're not going to have a long-lasting relationship with a customer, basically. And that goes to show you why some companies struggle a lot nowadays with CLV, customer lifetime value and customer retention, etc.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's have been switched. You really have to earn the loyalty from your customers. So
exactly.
It's very easy to be unloyal.
Yeah, it's easy to focus on just the profit, but customer experience is of the hell. And I don't know if you probably read that article by Gardner as well, where it says companies will be competing basically mostly on the basis of customer, and so it's important to learn how the customer feels and the way you communicate with them in order to retain them, basically.
Hörrni, ni som tittar och lyssnar, sista chansen att ställa en fråga. Annars kan ni ju såklart alltid kontakta Fredrik och hans kompisar på Viraya om ni undrar något eller vill veta mer. But very much thank you, Fredrik, for this morning. And I know that Swedma will send out this uppföljning, enkät och presentationen, but you, Viraya, you will also send out a present, a gift.
Yes,
I think
we will.
Checklist, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that'll be sent out to everyone as well. I'm very very consistent on LinkedIn, so feel free if you want to talk to that British guy in Stockholm. For a coffee, that's fine. Got the best coffee in Stockholm, by the way, Annette.
Are you sure about that? Coffee shaming or something. Hörrni, tack snälla för att ni var med den här morgonen, och som ni vet så brukar vi dyka upp här med webinars någon gång i veckan, så håll utkik på i vårt kalendarium. För de som har vägarna förbi Kistamässan imorgon så är vi där och 14:30 på Sales and Marketing-scenen. Kul om ni kommer förbi och säger hej där. Annars så önskar jag er en supertrevlig tisdag och på återseende. And thank you, Viraya and Fredrik.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.